as you go, as opposed to the traditional cross stitch where you work your way all the way across and then all the way back. The reason that we do the Victorian Cross on the Elizabeth Bradley is the whole concept of Elizabeth Bradley is not necessarily just to complete a cushion, but to take that piece, join it to another piece, and join it to another piece and create a rug. And the beauty of the Victorian Cross is it uses the most amount of wool of any stitch that is commonly out there, which creates an incredibly durable piece. We have rugs in the shop that have been on the floor for over 20 years and are walked on every day. And you just regularly have them cleaned and put them back down again. So consequently, the reason we do this Victorian Cross is to create the most durable product that we can. Our kind of tagline for Elizabeth Bradley is a pastime that lasts a lifetime, and we have to live up to that. We don't know whose lifetime we're talking about, so we need to make this the most durable, because a lot of our product is handed down from from families to youngers. So that's why we do the Victorian Cross. And I know that there's been a little bit of angst and a little bit of concern as to how this should be taught, how the prisoners, you go in and you deal with your stitchers for a certain amount of time, and then you leave, and then they're left to their devices, you're left to yours, and you come back and see what the results are. So what we're going to attempt to do is to give you each a starter kit. You may choose whichever one you want. We have an auricula, a pansy, and a bluebell. So whichever one you fancy, please take. And if you can open up the kits, we'll kind of look at what's inside. When we were here on Tuesday, there was some discussion that obviously no matter where you are in the world, you have stitchers that are more advanced than others, and many that are just starting out or want to learn. So one of the discussions we had was that we will offer you the opportunity of supplying starter kits to your stitchers, if you feel that would be beneficial. If you open up your kit, you'll see that in this case, the canvas has been printed. And we do that so that when we have an Elizabeth Bradley class, this is when we have our Elizabeth Bradley classes. We teach in Oxford on a regular basis, and we have people who come from all over. Many of them have stitched multiples, but yet still come to our classes. We teach them either just the basic stitch, the beginner aspect of it, as well as a couple of tricks that they may or may not be aware of. And then we move on to a joining class so that they can learn how to successfully join their canvases together. The reason that this is printed on interlock, and I'm sure some of your stitchers have worked on mono canvases, the woven canvases. And what I mean by the woven is where, it's actually, the canvas is woven. In the case of this is interlock, which means that every single intersection is locked into place. The reason we work with this type of canvas is because when we go to join it to another canvas to create a rug, it sits firmly on top and is quite flat. So our joins end up being quite delicate to look at in terms of you cannot tell the difference between one canvas on top of the other, where one canvas stops and the next canvas starts. So that's why we work with the interlock, to create that nice flat join. In Elizabeth Bradley, we only use 4 rows to join. That's all it takes. The beauty of working with the interlock is it cannot pull apart. It's trickier. You can do a join with a mono canvas. It's more difficult, and it can start to pull apart. So this is why we use the interlock. So if anybody should ask you that question, you've got the answer. The important thing about an Elizabeth Bradley kit is, in order to join them, and we view every single kit that we sell as not necessarily a cushion. It has the potential to be joined into a rug. And so we encourage the end user, the stitcher, to ensure that they have counted the right number of rows and the right number vertically and horizontally. Every canvas will have what we refer to as these hash marks on them. Now, because these are digitally printed and not hand painted, occasionally it may be out a row or so. So what we encourage you to do is to count and make sure. In this case, this is a 3 by 5. Because it's a 10 count, it means that there should be 30 vertical rows by 50 horizontal rows. In your kit, you will receive a chart. And if you would like this type of thing for your stitchers, what we will do is we will supply you with the chart and the blank canvas, because they will be working from charts.
Yeah,
if it's helpful to you, we will put the center point with just a little black marker, and that way your stitcher will know where the center of the design is. Right?
But I think that if you put the corners like that, it would be better than they ever had before, marking out.
Well, we certainly.
In fact, that in some ways is more useful than the centre, isn't it? Because you.
Well, if you had both. I think the centre is the most important, isn't it?
Well, some of your volunteers on Tuesday were saying the way we teach it is we teach it that you start stitching from the bottom up.
Right.
And one of your volunteers made the comment that some of her stitchers prefer to work on the design first and then go in with the background. So that really comes down to belts and braces. If you want the hash marks and the center point, then that takes care of both aspects.
I would have said that if you work from the bottom with a bigger piece, you have the problem with the stitches, not very clean clothes. You're working with that resting in their clothes sometimes.
But are they not going to roll it on their frame?
It says
They will not work this on a frame.
You won't work it on a frame?
No.
Oh, well, that's a very good point then.
So you may want to start with the design, but I mean, I'm defaulting to all of you in this, because all I'm going to do today is show you how we teach our stitchers to do it, knowing full well that you're going to have to adapt what you've learned here today to best suit your stitchers.
I have to say, we always tell our stitchers to start in the top right-hand corner for that, even on a frame, because otherwise it's all, because I mean, ours personally work in their cells resting on one corner of their bunk bed and one corner on a knee.
Right.
And so therefore they need to keep the work away from their clothes, which I'm sure aren't pristine.
Well, there's no reason why you can't work it from the top down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, in your case, when you're doing your basket weave, obviously you're starting with the right-handers this way and just going like that, your left-handers like this. Whereas our case, what we recommend is you start it from the bottom and work up. But there's no reason why you couldn't start it from the top and work down. It really comes down to what works best. And again, you adapt this to however is best going to work, because at the end of the day, we want this to be an enjoyable experience and not a headache. If you look at your kit, you'll see that you have a color card, and I believe your stitchers all receive this for every kit they have. And what we highly recommend, the beauty of Elizabeth Bradley and the difficulty of Elizabeth Bradley is that the colors in some color families tend to be very, very close together. So again, depending on what kind of light, we always say to our stitchers, oh, get the best possible light you can to separate your threads. In your case, it's not going to be that simple. So what we do is we suggest that they just separate the colors out. I just do it on the back of a chair and figure out how 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 works with the threads that I have. So that's what I would encourage you to do. As well, for some people, when they're working from the chart, you'll see that a lot of our squares have symbols as well as colors. And what I tend to do is I tend to just draw a little box over each of them and put the symbol in so that it's belts and braces for me. If I'm looking at a symbol, I know what thread I need, and I've just drawn in a little square with a pencil or a pen and put the little squiggly in the box that I need. Now, again, bearing in mind that we are thinking that any one of these finished pieces could be stitched into the format of a rug, it is critically important that if you're dealing with a 16 by 16, there be 160 rows by 160 rows. It's possible to join 161 to 160, but it doesn't look nearly as nice. And the most I've ever been successful in doing was 163 to 160. So what I encourage you to do is to have your stitcher thread up a needle. Do you work with them with waist knots? You know what I mean by waist knot? What would you call that over here, Hilda? Maybe I'm calling it the wrong thing. You just put a knot in the end of the thread. Waist knot. All right. So what I would encourage them to do, and this is for any stitcher, no matter where. Things happen. You know, you're counting across 160. When I first started, I was telling the ladies on Tuesday, when I first started doing Elizabeth Bradley before I owned the company, I would sit there and very carefully count out 160, and then I would do it again, and then I would do it a third time, and then I'd put in my first row, and then my children would come home from school, and I'd say, please count this for Mummy. She has to make sure she has 160, 160. And finally, my middle child, who was a little math whiz, said, Mummy, you're doing this all wrong. What you need to do, and she was quite right, was to thread up your needle, come below the hash marks, bring your needle up on the outside edge of the hash mark, okay, and then simply count to 10. So I'm counting 10 vertical rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sinking my needle. That's 1 inch. That's 10 rows. Now I'm going to count another 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 2 inches. And then by the time I get over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, I know that I'm exactly right, that I have the 30 rows. So from our class of the other day, what we do is, what I encourage all the stitchers to do, is to just do that, staying on the outside of the hash marks and then counting up again. You only need to do it on one horizontal line and one vertical. That will tell you if you have your 160 by 160. All right. That's...
I'm concerned that I have precisely 1 hour lesson in which to teach these because of the strictures of Cat A prison.
Right.
And I'm just getting a bit nervous that is there going to be time to take
I
me through
don't
all
have
these
that.
faces.
Well,
very
it's
right.
funny you should bring that up, because what we would like to do for you is to create some form of binder that you take in, so that you would
Yes,
have
and that
this,
we could photocopy.
and perhaps
Yeah.
you can do this on your own canvas.
Yes.
Put it into your binder and say, all right, this is how we count the 10 across and the
Yes,
10 up.
yes.
And then we will give you all the instructions, everything. You
Yeah.
can carry it with you.
Yes.
We'll photograph
That'd be
things, we'll put the
useful.
bullet points, everything that you
Yeah.
hopefully will need to
Yeah,
know.
that'd be very
Now,
helpful.
we're going to do a mock-up of this between Hilda and Claire and Helen and myself. We're going to do a mock-up of this.
Yeah.
We would love your feedback as to,
Yeah.
oh, you know, this wasn't included, or I couldn't
Can I
remember how to do
suggest
that.
this? Yeah.
Because
Yes.
if you put the hash in, is that not accurate enough?
If we do it by hand,
Yeah, right.
that's the whole thing. Is it's
But
in
these are
it's
printed.
yeah it's in these
Computer.
in our case right now. What you're getting is just blank canvas.
Yeah,
So the ownership
right.
would be
Yeah,
on
yeah,
us at
yeah.
our end
Okay,
to
yeah.
put those hash marks in, which is doable. I mean, the ladies in Wales can certainly do that, but it's just belts and braces.
I
You know.
would suggest that was helpful. to
Yes,
have
if
it
you
put
actually
in.
automatically on the kit
Yeah.
put the 4
Yeah, I
corners.
agree.
But I still would like them to do
Oh,
the
yes.
10 up, 10
Yeah,
down,
yeah,
10 up,
yeah,
10
yeah.
down.
It's a starting point for
yes,
them
yes,
if
yes,
they haven't
yeah.
got
Yeah.
brains which
Yeah.
are frightful.
I think some of mine might have a challenge. This might
And that's
be a bit of
fine.
a challenge.
And, no, we just want to make this as user-friendly as we
Yes.
possibly
Yeah.
can.
Can I
You
think of
can
another
use your very
absolutely
best
amazing
stitches.
thing to think of? Please don't put needles in the kits.
No, for heaven's sake not.
Never.
And don't ever send those in, because I've had those in Cat A. I'm allowed to take one in, but nobody is allowed
Well, this
to.
is, Katie's actually going to revisit with the prison system what, if there's any possibility.
Well, you must
But
be careful
the
of different
needles would be
categories.